At hospitals and airports across our country tonight, they remain alert for people who may have symptoms consistent with the Ebola virus. There were new scares and false alarms today, just as the second American patient has returned home for treatment under heavy protection. Our national correspondent Kate Snow is at Emory University Hospital in Atlanta for us tonight. Kate, good evening.
Good evening, Brian. Everyone was hoping that Nancy Ripoll might walk into this hospital today just like the first Ebola patient did, but she is more than 20 years older, and friends and family say fighting this deadly disease for more than a week now has taken a toll.
Nancy Ripoll came home today, landing just before noon at Dobbins Air Reserve Base. And just like Saturday, news choppers were overhead, tracking every move.
There you see the ambulance on its way to Emory University Hospital.
Unmarked law enforcement vehicles surrounded the ambulance in a moving formation.
We had SWAT team, we had bomb teams, we had K9, and of course we had assistance from the University Police and FBI as well too.
The paramedic driving and two paramedics in back wore hazmat suits. Nancy Ripoll emerged on a stretcher, encased from head to toe.
Nancy is still very weak. She's showing signs of progress and is moving in the right direction. And Nancy had yogurt before she got on the airplane.
Bruce Johnson with SIM spoke with Nancy's husband, David, who's still arranging his own travel from Liberia.
A week ago, he said, we were thinking about a possible funeral arrangements. Yet we kept our faith. Now we have a real reason to be hopeful.
The evacuation of the two Americans is being paid for by the relief organizations they work for. Ripoll's two sons came to Atlanta to meet her, her son Jeremy saying he just needed to be with Mom today. And while she's now in a world-class isolation unit, the family wants people to remember those suffering in West Africa.
I don't know if you know, but there are 50 doctors, Liberian doctors, for 4 million people of Liberia.
When Ripoll left Liberia last night, there was no ambulance, just a pickup truck covered with plastic. Kate Snow, NBC News, Atlanta.
I'm Dr. Nancy Snyderman at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, where 250,000 people pass through every day, including a daily flight from Lagos, Nigeria, the latest hotspot in the West African Ebola outbreak.
For anyone arriving on an international flight, U.S. Customs and Border Protection is the first line of defense. Then if someone appears ill, CDC quarantine officials will bring them here. This is the CDC's isolation room in Atlanta, one of 20 like it around the country, where infectious diseases are looked for and sometimes treated. In this refrigerator, antitoxin to malaria, diphtheria, even botulism. But it's now Ebola that everyone's worried about. So anyone with a fever, vomiting, or diarrhea is put in a super isolation room.
In addition to passenger surveillance, there are public health messages throughout the international terminal so that everybody knows what to look out for.
A reminder tonight that Ebola is still very rare, and unless you're working or fighting on the front lines, this disease is not something to be scared of, but something to know more about. Brian.
Dr. Nancy Snyderman in Atlanta, Kate Snow before that on our coverage tonight. Thank you both.